AP Biology. A couple people in the feedback have been concerned they don't really get the kind of the overview, the big picture of this unit. So I wanted to go and do a quick little thing to give you the overview. So this unit's about energetics, about energy, about how energy flows through biological systems, and we can look at it on all kinds of different levels, from the level of the entire planet, ecosystems, individual people. My we talked about my bike ride. Talk about it on the cellular level and on the molecular level. This right here is an enzyme. It's actually Rubisco, which is involved in uh, taking light energy and harvesting it uh, for food, to take carbon out of the atmosphere and turn it into food. So the overall theme really is energy and how does it move. And we've looked at it from a lot of different levels so far, and I'm just gonna kind of scream through some of these slides here. We talked about my ride, and we'll skip over the ride here, and then skip over the ride, back to this, and then we started to look at it from the point of view of the cellular level, and here are some cellular level or molecular level type things that we need to look at. And if you look at a whole cell, the topics that we talked about, this is a whole cell, and then there's the cytoplasm has glycolysis and fermentation happening in it, and then respiration happens in the mitochondria, and photosynthesis happens in the chloroplast. And we looked at this is glycolysis, and then we looked at the different types of fermentation, and then we're focused in on respiration. This is entry of pyruvate into the mitochondria, and there's the Krebs cycle. Now you don't have to memorize any of these, and here's the electron transport chain, because you can always look at a diagram, so you don't have to memorize these. But one common theme is moving hydrogens into a intermembrane space and then tapping that to get energy out of it. So anytime you see an ADP to ATP or an ATP to ADP transition, that's an energy transfer. NADH, remember, carries electrons. FADH2 carries electrons. So anytime you see NADH and FADH2, you're transferring electrons. And it's high energy electrons to dump them off into this ever moving chain of electrons here in the electron transport chain. And we're also looking at photosynthesis. We haven't finished looking at photosynthesis. This is about where we are right now, but that happens in the chloroplast, and the business end of a chloroplast is the thylakoid membrane, and in this we use light energy to pump hydrogens into a space, and then we allow those hydrogens to come back through using our ATP synthase to make ATP. So very similar to the mitochondria, but just has a different energy source. Let's see. And then the Calvin cycle is how all of the carbon in the thin air becomes sugar and eventually makes up things like trees and lettuce and grain that cows eat, and then you eat the grain and you eat the cows and the lettuce and on your burger. But this is the business end of how carbon dioxide, thin air, becomes solid sugar. So it's called carbon fixation, the Calvin cycle. And then we also, stepping back, looked at generalized ideas of energy transfers in chemical reactions. And we kind of did this before metabolism. If you think about it, we talked about endergonic and exergonic reactions, and these are all energy transfer reactions. Talked about heat, showed you some exothermic, exergonic and exothermic reactions here with the fireworks. And then, we talked about uphill reactions and downhill reactions, or downhill reactions would be exergonic, uphill reactions would be endergonic. And we talked about how ATP is central in cycling those, ATP cycling combines energy transfers to make it available for cellular work. It's like the little tokens in the machines, if you remember that analogy. ATP is used for all kinds of things in the cell. And then, one of the things we focused in on, and that one's not working now, is muscle movement. But we also talked about how to make phosphate by substrate level phosphorylation and using the ATP synthase, which is chemiosmotic phosphorylation, because chemicals are transferring through the membrane, spinning this thing. Two ways to drive chemiosmotic phosphorylation are oxidative phosphorylation in the mitochondria and using light or photophosphorylation in the chloroplast. And then we talked about metabolism, and we dived into that huge complex chart, which kind of is shown here in a more simplified form. But remember, every one of these little connections here is the result of an enzyme. It's a reaction that's enzyme catalyzed. And we talked about what enzymes do. Enzymes catalyze reactions by lowering their activation energy. And then we also talked about what the heck that means. And that there are three ways, really, that activation energy is lowered. It's not magic. It's actually mechanical things happening, chemical and mechanical things happen. We did not talk yet about competitive exclusion and how to turn enzymes on and off, but we'll do that soon. And so if we go back to the very beginning here, and there's some things that we still haven't talked about. For example, we haven't talked about the whole planet yet, really. We talked about me, but we need a little bit more to do on ecosystems. But ultimately, the whole thing is, how does energy transfer? How is energy used in biological things?